Name is Leah LaRue, and I have the pleasure of serving the city of Atlanta as the Director of Neighborhood Planning. I'm sorry, the Director of Communications and Neighborhood Relations. Sorry, I forgot what my title is. And if you are joining us for the first time, which is unusual. We don't get very many first timers for parliamentary procedures, but if you're joining us for the first time, I want to welcome you to NPU University. We created this program in 2019 to address issues of inequity in planning processes. We wanted residents from every corner of Atlanta, South and West included, to have access to the same information and resources found in other parts of the city. So we created this amazing program, which is pretty highly regarded by the city of Atlanta and offers in past years offered up to 40 classes, all of which are free to City of Atlanta residents and City of Atlanta employees. We have scaled down the programming just a bit, so we're not quite offering 40 classes, but we are still offering some of the essentials, including our basic parliamentary procedure. It is our hope that by attending this class, students will understand how to participate in their own NPUs and neighborhood association meetings, how to use parliamentary procedure to resolve or sometimes avoid some of the problems that arise that are typical in NPU meetings, some of which are unique to NPUs. Um, so I hope that you will get a ton out of this class, and please do feel free to ask all the questions. I will tell you in advance, having taken this class more times than I can count, it isn't, the sexiest content. It isn't like the most exciting content, but it is so critical to having organized, orderly, efficient meetings. NPU meetings and neighborhood association meetings are significantly more organized, more efficient, and in many cases, more inclusive when you are utilizing Robert's Rules of Order or your preferred rule of order. All right, so for those that joined while I was talking, I was trying to stall because we were still letting people in. We still are letting people in. But for those that are just joining, my name is Leah LaRue. I have the pleasure of serving the city of Atlanta as the Director of Communications and Neighborhood Relations. I am joined tonight by a few of my coworkers. Kendra Moore is our Manager of Programs, Neighborhood Relations Programs. Kendra?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Hope everyone has a great time this evening.
Thanks, Kendra. Also joined by Tony McNeil, who's our Senior Program Coordinator for Outreach and Engagement Programs.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Glad to be here with you guys.
Thanks, Tony. I believe I saw, Morgan Thomason is a project manager on the NPU Resources and Support team.
Hello, how are y'all doing?
And I think I saw Daniel sneak in too. I did. Daniel is a program coordinator senior on our resources and support team also. Oh, he's our special one. All right, so we'll move on to the next slide. I'm not driving this one, so thank you. Oh, did we skip one? No? Yes? No? Okay. So our classroom rules, we say this at the beginning of every single class. So it is not specific to this class. It is the rule for every class that we have. Please keep your microphone muted. Obviously, at the appropriate time, you can unmute yourself, but throughout the class, please keep your microphone muted. That helps us cut back on background noise, feedback that comes from audio, competing audio, etc. Please keep your camera on if you're taking this class for any sort of credit. If you have a question during Q&A, please raise your hand to get in the queue, and we'll show you how to do that momentarily. And all questions must be relevant to course content. It is so uncomfortable for me to listen to your entire question and then tell you that we're not going to answer that question. So I would appreciate in advance if you would refrain from asking questions that are not relevant to course content. But no worries, we're still here to answer those questions. We just want you to shoot us an email or give us a call or stop by City Hall. We're more than happy to have all the conversations on all the topics that you want to discuss. But for tonight's class and for the benefit of the students and for the benefit of time, we want to make sure that all of our discussion is centered around parliamentary procedure. And to raise your hand, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a react button. If you click on that button, you'll see the raise hand pop up, and that is how you raise your hand. If you're not familiar with it, don't know how to do it, haven't done it in a really long time, you can go ahead and practice now. And I think that is it. I am going to introduce you to our instructor for the evening. Todd Crowder is a professional registered parliamentarian. He supports our work in so many ways and is extraordinarily knowledgeable about parliamentary procedure and just a really great subject matter expert on all of this stuff. You'll hear me from time to time, mostly towards the end, but from time to time, you'll hear me jump in and kind of tag team or piggyback on something that Todd says. That's unique to this class. I don't typically interject with instructors, but in this class, it's a bit of a tag team because parliamentary procedure, because the NPU system has some unique nuances that require, and we are subject to the Code of Ordinances as well. So sometimes I'll jump in to clarify or answer questions that are more in my purview than in Todd's. But other than that, I am, without further ado, going to introduce Todd Crowder, who will take it from here.
Okay, thank you so much for that kind introduction, Leah. Let me see if I can get my slideshow pulled up here.
And while he's doing that, I
Yeah.
forgot to say this, I'll say it now. Thank you all so much for being here. There's a lot of places you could be at 6:11 on I don't even know what day it is, on a whatever day today is, but you're here and I appreciate you for being here.
Okay, and I do too. Thank y'all all so much. I know some of y'all have heard this before. It's pretty much the same course it's been in previous years. It can be a little different based on the questions you have, or if I come up with different anecdotes to illustrate and so forth. I spend so much time steeped in all of this, it becomes second nature to me. You kind of turn a corner at a certain point when you stop learning Roberts and start criticizing it. When you start saying, well, if it were really up to me, I would have written it this way. There's a lot of things in Roberts that I wouldn't have done precisely the way they're done. One of the main ones is I would just take out some of those sections that nobody ever uses. Like, I don't think the book has to be this big. I love it, but I also hate the fact that it's twice as long as it really needs to be. You don't need to use things like committee of the whole. In an ordinary organization, it doesn't serve much of a purpose, but it takes up so much space in this book, it scares people away. Get this book if you haven't already. Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised and brief. It is a great starting point. If you don't know much about procedure, if you're a novice, this is the place to start. Very readable, very short. It's a lot shorter than Robert's Rules of Order and a lot simpler. And it only focuses on the parts you really actually use. And you don't necessarily have to know, you won't end up knowing how to preside from that book, but you'll be able to function as a member. And that's the main thing for most of you, I think. Now, today, here's the things we're going to be reviewing. There's a lot here, but if you knew something about every one of these bullet points, you would have a pretty good handle on the whole topic. I didn't really see any need to include anything in 101 beyond these issues here. We'll start with what is parliamentary procedure. I think most of you have a general idea of it. You've used it, but just to backtrack and take a new view of it, it's the name that we give to the tradition of rules and customs used for decision making by a deliberative assembly. It's also most of the rules flow naturally from and constitute a logical application of basic principles, such as majority rule, minority rights, and civility. And that is really at the highest level, that's what parliamentary procedure ends up being about. Isn't simply learning a list of rules, but understanding why those are the rules. Understanding why certain things take a two-thirds vote. Um, why the rules are written the way they are. They are derived from principles. If you know the principles, majority rule, minority rights, civility, there's a few more, but decorum, all your rules of decorum are pretty close to principles. Um, the the principles being, why are we here? We want to make decisions and do so in a peaceful way. And that's what the whole idea of parliamentary procedure is. And so if you remember that it all comes from democratic principles, you'll understand why the rules are there and what they're after. They're not really just rules that are meant to get in the way. They're like a traffic light. That is probably the best way to look at it. They're your traffic light. They allow business to flow because without a traffic light, everything would just crash. There'd be no way to take turns. You have to have an agreed way of taking turns. Um, Now, quick view of the history of Robert's rules, or sorry, parliamentary procedure. It goes in the United States. It goes back. I'm sorry. It goes back to the English Parliament, and then it came to the United States with the first European settlers, and then it became uniform in 1876. Before that, it was like kind of like different rules in every region. People would travel from one area of the country to another, and then fights would break out. People saying, "Well, that's not the way you do that. That's not how that's done." And they would be so sure they were right because everybody in their region of the country did it that way, but they'd go to another place and it would be done a different way, and they it just wasn't standardized. So Henry Robert was presiding over a group one time that had people from different parts of the country, and it got nowhere. So he said, this really needs to be standardized. There needs to be a rule book about this. So he wrote it all down, what he thought the rules should be. And that was the first Robert's Rules of Order. We're now on Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 12th edition, this all these many years later. And it is our basic handbook for operation of many organizations, but there are other parliamentary authorities. Robert's Rules of Order is probably 90 to 95% of the organizations that name a parliamentary authority. But there's also the American Institute of Parliamentarians Standard Code of Parliamentary Procedure, and it's pretty good. It's shorter, it's more informal. Um, I don't personally know of any group that uses that. I hear a lot of medical and dental groups use it, and they seem happy with it. There's also a really, really short one called um, Modern Parliamentary Procedure, and the American Psychological Association uses that one. I would really love to watch one of their meetings sometimes because I want to see how it works, how you can use a really short manual, like 50 pages or so, and they're a pretty big organization too. I don't know how that operates, but I would like to. But anyway, the point is, Roberts is not the whole world. There are others. Um, Now, excuse me. I'm gonna talk for a moment. Oh, excuse me. About institutional forbearance. The opposite of institutional forbearance is procedural hardball. That's where you use the rules in any way you can to defeat your enemy. Scorched earth tactics is another word for it. And those things will ruin an organization. Trying to weaponize the rules, trying to do anything you can to get your way on whatever the issue is, expelling people, finding a way to deny them their vote. Um, it's not in the spirit of Robert's Rules of Order. It's not in the spirit of democracy. you should be engaging in what we call institutional forbearance. And what that is, it's restraint. And it calls upon you to avoid actions that, while technically allowed, could damage the system by damaging good faith. And if you want to know more about these concepts, institutional forbearance and procedural hardball, which really go to the heart of democracy, why you're there, what it is you're trying to do, look at a book called How Democracies Die, and you can learn more about these concepts. Now let's get into the nitty gritty of it. And also, I'm open to questions at any time. If anyone wants to raise their hand, if the facilitators would please let me know that someone has a question, I'm happy to take them at any time. That'll help make this course be a little different from the way it was in previous years, and we can maybe have a little bit of a new discussion if anyone has questions they want to ask. So if there are none at this moment, we'll get into main motions and secondary motions. A main motion. That's a formal proposal by a member that the assembly act. And well, maybe that's a little too strict. It could be just an expression of a position. You could have resolved that this assembly expresses the following opinion, and then you could state your opinion, and then if you vote aye, then that's becomes the opinion of the assembly. A motion it's also sometimes called a question. Like the chair might say the question before the assembly, or are you ready for the question? That's just another word for motion. Now I say main motion, you got to remember that the main motion can be about anything. I mean, well, within the purview of the organization, within your NPU, it would be whatever your NPU is doing. The recommendations, I think, usually are what you have going on. And those would be your main motions. A lot of times those would come from a committee. A committee makes its report, and then at the end it might say, and in accordance with this report, on behalf of the committee, I move that so and so. That's a main motion. Now it introduces new business to the assembly, and it is in order during new business on the agenda if no other business is pending. That's if you're a member and you want to make a new business motion. But as I say, committees do it too during the committee reports section. Main motions are debatable and amendable. Yes, Mr. Bill Scatini.
Hello, hello. Yeah, so us as parliamentarians, we cannot make motions, correct?
Uh, shouldn't. It is advisable that a member parliamentarian not participate in debate or make motions or vote unless it's a ballot.
Okay, that's what I thought. I
That's
think
under
Mr.
Robert's Rule of
LaRue, I
Order.
just wanted to verify that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it kind of handcuffs us some a little bit, on
Yeah, that is some
well,
organizations make a special rule of order or put it in the bylaws that the parliamentarian may do those things, but without that, Robert's Rules of Order says they shouldn't.
So this is one of the places I want to jump in because the entire purpose of the NPU system is to get recommendations from the community, from the people. It is not preferable that any member of the community be left out of that process, especially because they're serving the
Oh, oh,
community.
oh, oh.
So, what we typically suggest is that if your NPU uses the polling feature to vote, you can certainly vote by poll.
Yeah.
If your NPU uses some other ballot um, or any other way of voting, you can certainly vote there. And you really can vote by show of hands. It is for the reasons Todd explained. It's just not advisable to you don't want to be seen as influencing the conversation or influencing the motion, but you can definitely participate in voting. I would just take care to not influence your neighbors and other members of the NPU or neighborhood association.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Um, Here's an example of a main motion. I move that we hold a training conference at Fedora Conference Center on May 5th. In the real world, we would probably add some more details to it, like what time of day and who's responsible for organizing it, et cetera, et cetera. But for illustration purposes like this, we use simpler motions like this for our illustrations. Um, Secondary motions. Now, they're divided up into further types, but for 101, I don't want to get too granular. I want to keep it light. So we'll just call everything other than a main motion a secondary motion. And those are the kinds of motions that can be made while a main motion is pending. There is a rule in Robert's Rules of Order that only one matter at a time can be considered, but that's talking about main motions. Secondary motions are what you use to dispose of your main motion and to help you consider it. And I will give you some examples. Amend, that's a huge one. I think you all know what that means. You want to perfect the motion before you adopt it. And some people don't know this. It's very elementary to the process, and you need to know this. You amend it before you adopt it. Now, not to say you can't amend something previously adopted, but that's a whole nother ball of wax. Normally, in the process of adopting a motion, the amendment process is done first as part of perfecting the motion to make it as good as you want it to be before you put it to that final vote. Another one is to end the debate. Also called call the question, also called previous question. That one itself is not debatable because who wants to argue about arguing? Once someone moves the motion to end debate, it is immediately put to a vote. It requires a 2/3 vote to stop debate because we don't want to stop anyone from talking except by an extraordinary vote. Point of order, very important one. And it is a motion, even though it's a different kind of a motion. It's not debated, it's not put to a vote, it's ruled upon by the chair. Your point of order means that you're objecting to something that's going on, that you think process is not being properly followed. So you raise a point of order, and if necessary, it can be an interrupting motion. Try not to let it be if you can help it, but if something's about to happen that's bad and you got to stop it, say point of order whenever you have to. And the chair is required to rule upon your point of order. That's an important point there because sometimes a point of order, like if someone in debate questions your motives, that give me just a moment. Let me finish this point and I'll get to that. If someone is questioning your motives, they're offending your rights, and you have a right to make a point of order right then and ask the chair to deal with it. And the chair might say something like, okay, well, everybody please behave themselves and try to just smooth it over. You're entitled to a ruling. If you want to push the point, you can say, I'd like a ruling, please. So just remember that the answer to a point of order is the chair rules. Okay, Mr. Scafidi.
Quick question. Do you have to say point of order when somebody's running over their, allotted time, 5, 7, 2, whatever minutes it is?
Yeah, that would be a case for a point of order. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Uh-huh. And then if you think the chair rules improperly on your point of order or on anyone's point of order for that matter, you can appeal it. And you do that, Mr. Chair, you get recognized and you say, I appeal to ruling of the chair. And then it's up to the assembly itself by a majority vote. And it is debatable. And so if you make a point of order, you're ruled against, you say, I appeal the decision of the chair. The chair says, okay, and then explains why he made the decision he made. And then you get to explain why you're appealing. And then everybody else who wants to debate it gets to debate it. And then the assembly votes, majority vote. And whatever they do, whichever way they go, that becomes the ruling. Now, this is important because in a true, honest democracy, it is crucial that the majority of the members vote honestly on an appeal. And by that, I mean, if there's true difference for opinion, vote your opinion. But if an assembly starts using appeal the ruling of the chair to strike down rules they don't like, then they're abusing the process and it's going to fall. It's not going to work. Parliamentary procedure only works as long as a majority stay on the side of enforcing the rules. As long as a majority is willing to say, well, I didn't get my way, but at least the rules were followed, so I'm going to live with it. If a majority can say that, you've got a good democracy there. If they're all willing to cheat and vote dishonestly on appeals, it's going to fall apart. Next secondary motion. This one's very powerful. Suspend the rules. It takes a 2/3 vote, and it's usually not debatable. And it can sweep away, not your bylaws usually, but rules of procedure. Both anything in Robert's Rules of Order and your own special rules of order if you have any. Yes, Leah LaRue.
Hey, I just wanted to emphasize for the benefit of those taking this class, what Todd said about appealing the ruling of the chair. Um, so many questions, complaints, emails, calls, visits I get reporting a chairperson to me. And my first question is always, what did you do? What did you say in the meeting? Which is why I always encourage people to take this class so you can understand how to use Robert's rules to participate in your meeting, to participate fully and effectively in your meeting. If you do not, I want to emphasize this both for NPU chairs who are here and for members who are here. If the chair rules on something and you don't agree with that, you can appeal the ruling of the chair, and then the body votes to either support the chair's ruling or to overturn the chair's ruling. But that is at that point, the decision of the body. And I know that Todd just said that. I am reiterating it because it comes up so often in NPUs, and neighborhoods, so often that I want to make sure you heard that and I want to make sure you get that. And if you're taking notes, please do write that down. Thanks.
Yep, yep. Good point. And yeah, this point of order and appeal are when I say I both love and hate Robert's Rules of Order, these are things I love about it. They give power to the people. So many, and I know I've been to enough real life meetings to see that so many of them are dominated by one powerful chair who just tells the assembly how things are going to be, and the assembly, okay. That's not a deliberative assembly. And the way that members preserve their rights is very detailed in Robert's Rules of Order. That is the thing I love the most about it. The thing I hate is the parts that you never use. Taryn Bell, question.
Yes, if you would like to appeal the ruling of the chair, would you first present a motion to do so?
Well, that is itself a motion. The process would be point of order, and then the chair rules, your point is not well taken. And
Okay.
then you say, Mr. Chair, and then he recognizes you, and you say, I appeal the ruling of the chair, and that's it right there. You're making the motion. And
Got you.
it does need a second. Someone then would say, I second. I
Okay.
should have said that earlier. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pardon me. Did you say it does or does not need a second?
It does. Yeah. Okay. Um, Objection to the consideration of the question. You don't see that one very often, but if someone makes a motion that's just rude or mean or offensive or crazy, catch it early. Like, don't do it. You got to get it before debate starts. But as soon as they make the weird or crazy motion, and this is an interrupting motion, you don't have to get recognized. You can just speak right up and say, I object to the consideration of that question. And then the chair, right then, no debate, puts it to a vote. And if 2/3 don't agree with you, then it's gone. Kills it right there. Division of the question. That is where the motion has two distinct proposals in it that are capable of standing alone and still making sense by themselves. A member could, when such a motion is being considered, a member could move to divide the question in two. And if a majority, and that's debatable, and if a majority votes to do that, then you suddenly have two questions facing you, and you deal with them in order, one at a time. Not often, but this not something that comes up often, but it is necessary when it's necessary. Division of the assembly, and yeah, I put them together because they really have nothing to do with each other, but they get confused with each other because of the similarities of the name, and I want you to understand the difference. Division of the assembly is when there's an unclear voice vote. You do sometimes have voice votes in Zoom rooms. I've seen them. So if you have the ayes and the noes are taken and the chair says, oh, I think the ayes have it, and somebody thinks the noes have it, you can say division, and then the chair has to take a counted vote to be sure. And that's just to be because you think an uncounted vote is unclear, you say division of the assembly. And if you want to divide a motion into two motions, that's division of the question. And Tori Sumlin, please.
Good evening. Thank you. When we when I heard you speak about making a point of order, um, if a matter is taking, let's say, just say for instance, a discussion is taking a long time, and members says, "Hey, point of order." Um, the chair then recognizes that person for their point of order so that they can state what the point is, correct?
Yeah.
And then after that, does that require someone to make a second behind that, or does that allow the chair to then entertain that motion
Uh,
to rule on it?
yeah, no second on a point of order, and no debate. The
Okay.
chair simply rules on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no? Okay. And Jim Martin.
Yes, if a ruling of the chair is appealed to the body and the body overturns the ruling of the chair, the body sides with the appellant, and the same question comes up at a future meeting, is the chair obliged to rule as the body ruled at the prior meeting, or do you simply carry through the same process once again?
Um, Under Robert's Rules of Order, precedent is considered advisory, not binding. So he might be well advised to remember what happened and govern himself accordingly, but it's not an absolute requirement. Always relevant is the best interest of the organization, and that can change. Now, the privileged motions, they are a type of secondary motion, and Roberts puts it best, so I'll just read this. Privileged motions do not relate to the pending business, but have to do with special matters of immediate and overriding importance, which, without debate, should be allowed to interrupt the consideration of anything else. So extremely important motions that get to sweep everything else away. And they are. I say examples. I think this is the entire list. I think this is all the privileged motions. Um, excuse me. Call for the orders of the day is one. That one is if the meeting is off track. If the chair is on the wrong agenda item. Or actually, I do see it used in another situation where no one's even trying to follow the agenda anymore. Everybody's just chatting. And so if a meeting has devolved into chit chat, it would be appropriate for a member to say, call for the orders of the day, meaning please get back on track. And by the way, call for the orders of the day is an interrupting motion. You don't need to be recognized. But the other time you would use it is if the chair simply makes a mistake and is on the wrong item on the agenda, then you would call his attention to that by saying call for the orders of the day. And it might help to add, exactly where you think he should be, because if that's all you say, he'd probably be confused. Taryn Bell, question.
Yes, what if the agenda is being followed, but the presenter has gone off on a tangent?
Oh,
Can you still call for orders of the day?
no, but I mean, that's not the right tool, but you would make a point of order. You would
Okay,
simply, yeah, point of order, Mr. Chair, the speaker's remarks are not germane to the question.
perfect. Thank
And
you.
that'd be the parliamentary way to say it, but you don't, I mean, if you said the member is off topic, that, any way you can communicate it is good enough. Um, and raise a question of privilege. That one's kind of a catch-all. It's anything that's stopping the meeting from happening fairly or you from participating in the meeting fairly, like if you can't hear or if it's too hot, things like that. And I'll tell you that this is one of the things that I see abused when there are people who effectively want to filibuster a meeting. That's one way they'll do it is sometimes groups will coordinate and start raising every petty complaint they can think of to take up time and not let real business get conducted, just thinking up things that they want to complain about that they are then going to require the chair to at least answer them on. Another privileged motion, recess. I think we've all seen that one. It's fairly common. You can make a motion to recess by um, seeking recognition, getting recognized. I move that we recess for 15 minutes. And you get a second, it's put to a majority vote. And if it's adopted, then the assembly recesses for 15 minutes or however long you say. It is amendable to the extent of how long the recess should be. But usually, but I think trying to tweak the amount of recess time usually ends up not being worth it. You would spend more time doing that than you're talking about. Adjourn. Always, a motion to adjourn is one of the highest. It is the second highest because no one can compel an assembly to stay in session if it doesn't want to. The assembly can always adjourn, and it's by majority vote. And it can be if any other motion is pending, you can move to adjourn nonetheless, except for this last one, which is the highest ranking motion of them all. Fix the time to which to adjourn, and you can make this one even if a motion to adjourn is pending. Then what that does, it's a little bit of a mouthful, but what it means is set time for an adjourned meeting, a continued meeting. Like if you're not done with everything you need to do at this meeting, but it's way late and you want to just set time to continue it, then you would let me put it this way, Mr. Chairman, you get recognized and say, Mr. Chairman, I move that we fix the time of this meeting, I'm sorry, fix the time to which to adjourn of this meeting to next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Then you pick up where you left off at the next meet, Wednesday, 7 p.m., and you have a continued meeting. And the reason that's the highest ranking motion is because what if the assembly adjourned without fixing the time for an adjourned meeting when one was necessary? Then it wouldn't, all is lost. You've adjourned, you can't have one. So a member should at least have the chance to make that motion, even if adjournment is pending. And those are the 5 privileged motions. And then there's the motions that bring a question back. And I'll mention this because it's relevant in this context, even though I'll cover it again under decorum. You can't criticize a prior action of the assembly. Like something that was done at a prior meeting, you can't bring it back up when you're debating something and say, that thing we did that other time, we shouldn't have done that. That was a disaster. It's against decorum to do that, to gripe about things that are already settled. But what you can do is bring them back up again using one of these motions. And then they're up for debate again, and then you can properly debate them. They are a type of main motion, by the way. They are a subset of main motions. Take from the table. Of course, to do that, you have to have laid it on the table in the first place. But to take it back from the table, that is a bring back motion. Rescind. That's the one, if you want to gripe about something that was done in the past, this is the one you would use to bring it back in front of the assembly. You'd want to rescind it. You'd say, I move that we rescind the motion that, whatever you want to call it, that identifies it, whatever the motion did, or however you want to identify it. I move that we rescind that motion. And that, it's a little tricky. It usually requires a 2/3 vote. But if you give advance notice, it's a majority vote. And they're usually advance notices would be given at a previous meeting. You'd give notice at one meeting and then make the motion at the next meeting, and then it's only a majority vote. So if you allow everybody proper notice, chance to turn out, and they know what's coming, if you give them that kind of a heads up, then you can do it with a much lower vote threshold. Reconsider. That one has to be done at the same meeting, and it has to be made by someone who voted on the prevailing side. That's really kind of a limited set of circumstances, but it does happen that someone, the assembly adopts a motion and then someone who was on the side voting to adopt it suddenly realizes something. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. That's going to lead to disaster. So Mr. Chairman, I move to reconsider. And then it's suddenly you're back where you were. It's not adopted anymore. You get to vote again. If the motion to reconsider is adopted. I mean, if that's adopted, then you go back and consider the main motion again. Discharge a committee. That's one. Sometimes you refer something to a committee and you want it to make a report and give you some recommendations, and you wait and you wait and you wait, and it never comes back. Maybe those members aren't even working on it. Who knows what's going on with them? But you can take the matter back. Just say, it's time for us to get, strike while the iron's hot. So let's discharge that committee and decide for ourselves now. We tried with that committee and they failed. Now we're going to do it ourselves. That motion is discharge a committee. Okay, any questions on that section? Mr. Scafidi.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Uh,
So I'm these motions that you're talking about, again, as a parliamentarian, are we handcuffed a little bit as far as what motions we can make that you've been going over here? Are these all motions that parliamentarians can?
yeah, okay, the role of the member parliamentarian. Um, I'm going to tell you a little bit of nuance that's in Robert's Rules of Order. You have rights as a member, the same as every other member. It's just Robert's Rules of Order strongly advises you not to exercise them because of your impartiality. It recommends that you not be seen doing things that are partial. And but if push comes to shove, if you insist that you're going to use those rights, nobody can stop you. The chair can't rule you out, can't say, hey, I see you, or like if you seek recognition and want to speak in debate, and the chair says, I'm not recognizing you because you're the member parliamentarian, he can't really do that. He doesn't have that kind of enforcement power. You're asserting your rights as a member, which you can do. It's just you're going against the advice of Roberts. But from what we were told earlier, the code kind of guarantees you your rights of participation. So we're sort of in you got a little bit of tug of war between the two. And I'm going to say, if you were doing those things, you might feel like Mr. Robert is frowning at you from 150 years ago, but there's
Okay.
really no rule that can stop you.
Well, let me ask you this specifically then. What particular order would apply? Because the city of Atlanta, and I'm sorry if this offends anybody, but the city of Atlanta has um, a knack for dumping stuff on our NPU and wanting a vote before we've really had a time to digest it. And I would love to see a next meeting, and when people want to vote, at least give us one meeting to discuss it, talk about it, and advise the NPU and let them
Mr.
digest it.
Scafidi, that's not relevant to what is being taught here tonight. I appreciate your suggestion. I'm happy to have that conversation, but it's not relevant to parliamentary procedure.
How it's not relevant.
It's not. Thank you.
Okay. Now, the making of a motion. This will give you the exact language and so forth of how to make a motion. You're the member, and when no one else has the floor, you can't just do this any old time. You have to wait until no one else has the floor. And you say, Madam Chairman or Mr. Chairman. And then the chair says, Mr. Daniels, or whatever your name is recognized. Now, they don't actually have to put it that way. They might just look at you expectantly, nod to you, point to you, gesture at you. I mean, any way they do it is acceptable as long as it's clear. And if you see they're looking at you, waiting for you to speak, you've been recognized and you start. And you clearly and concisely state your motion. You say, I move that we host a fundraiser at Unicoi State Park in July. And then the motion receives a second if needed. Main motions do. Another member will say, second, or I second the motion. That's interrupting. That's not a motion, but it's a second, and you don't have to be recognized to second. And by the way, secretaries, you don't have to know the name of the seconder. You don't have to put that in the minutes. I see a lot of groups wasting time on that. Just all you have to know is that it was seconded. If no one volunteers to second the motion, the chair should say, is there a second to the motion? And if there's not one, then the chair declares the motion lost. The next step is the chair states the motion. And this is important because this is the chair putting it back out to the assembly officially, so they'll know what they're about to discuss. And the chair says, it is moved and seconded that, and then states the body of the motion. Once the chair states the motion, it's pending and cannot be withdrawn by the maker without the assembly's permission. Sometimes after some debate, the maker of the motion realizes they didn't really phrase it very well or realizes they didn't really think it through and wants to take it back. And they say, I withdraw the motion. The chair properly should say, well, does the assembly consent? Is there any objection? And then if no one objects, then fine. That's a type of a vote, unanimous consent. If someone does object, then you'd have to take a majority vote to see if the assembly will give their permission to withdraw the motion. But once the chair states it, it's no longer the property of that maker of the motion. It now belongs to the assembly itself, and they get to decide any disposition of it. Friendly amendments. Here's what Roberts says. They put it best. Regardless of whether or not the maker of the main motion accepts the amendment, it must be opened to debate and voted on formally unless adopted by unanimous consent and is handled under the same rules as amendments generally. Yep. That I have found that there's a lot of misconceptions around friendly amendments. And a lot of people think that if the maker of the motion says, yes, I accept the friendly amendment, that you don't even need a vote, that he can just do it. And that's not right. As I just said on the last slide, if a member, let's go back. It cannot be changed without the assembly's permission. So a maker of the motion can't grant a friendly amendment. It's still up to the assembly. But a lot of times, if it's something like a correction or something that obviously should be done, a lot of times it can be done by unanimous consent. The chair will simply say, "Oh yes, is there any objection to that amendment?" Like if they're correcting something, the chair would do it that way, and then hearing none, the amendment is accepted. But if it's something more likely to be controversial, the chair might just accept it as a regular old amendment and say the floor is open for debate. Did Mr. Scafidi have another question? Or I guess the hand was still up. Okay. After the processing of the, wait, I'm sorry, no, this is the process after the, okay. Processing a motion. The assembly debates the motion. The chair says, is there any debate? All comments are directed to the chair. Now that's important. You don't talk to the other members, not, even though what you're saying is for their benefit, you don't actually direct your comments to them. Your comments are directed to the chair. It's like you're talking to the chair, almost like you're trying to persuade the chair, although the chair's opinion doesn't matter. The chair is impartial. Yes, Lilu.
I just again want to emphasize that it's something that I see so often in NPUs. I would say probably 23 out of 25 of them, to be honest. And in the ones where there is constant friction or conflict, or not even constant, but when in the ones where there is more likely to be friction or conflict, it is often because of members talking to each other, arguing with each other, disrespecting, disagreeing with each other. And all comments, as Mr. Crowder just said, should be directed to the person who is presiding over the meeting, the chairperson. Your comment should be to the chair, not to the person who spoke before you or the person whose opinion you disagree with. All comments should go to the chair. And that in and of itself, I've witnessed it myself. That makes for a significantly more orderly meeting, and a meeting with a lot less bickering and friction and tension.
Yes.
So I just wanted to emphasize that.
Okay. Thank you. And Christina Hardaway.
Can we talk about anything related to online meetings or hybrid meetings? I guess things you've seen in real life on how this can go if you have a hybrid or virtual meeting.
Maybe if I hear the question, you can go ahead.
Yeah, what's the question, Christina?
Well, I guess the context is that everyone is in person. When you say I second something or you're talking, but a lot of times on virtual meetings, I don't think
Yeah.
things are recognized.
Okay, good question. Yeah, Robert's Rules of Order, obviously, it's still kind of mired in the past. They finally put some recommended electronic rules in the back and said you can adopt them if you want to, but they're not really officially part of Roberts unless you uh, say so yourself. Yeah, to have electronic meetings, you have to probably have it in your bylaws or at least a special rule of order. And so, but by the way, do that if you haven't, pass a rule saying you can have them. But yeah, you're right that when I say that so and so is an interrupting motion or you don't need to seek recognition to second, you're right. You may have to raise your virtual hand in a Zoom meeting because you can interrupt. The room is designed so that you can never interrupt. And in that case, you're going to have to. But yeah, if time is of the essence, like when I say on objecting to the consideration, you have a very short window to get that motion in. Raise your virtual hand, raise your real hand, do this. Um, Interrupt if you can, but you may have to come back later and say, I was doing everything I can to get your attention, Mr. Chair, and you weren't recognizing me. And you may get a point of order through that way. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. There in Zoom rooms are inherently different, and there are some things you're not going to be able to do. And hopefully a good set of electronic rules will address those and preserve as many rights as they can. But yeah, you're correct. I know what you're saying.
It is a challenge that I see a lot, and in fact, I experienced it. Um, I think last week or the week before last, we were in a meeting, and it was a hybrid meeting, so we were online, and some members were in person, and the chairperson adjourned the meeting, and we were trying to get their attention, and other members online were trying to get their attention because there was business that had not yet been addressed, and we couldn't we couldn't interrupt the meeting. So that was just a very recent example. Of course, I've seen what you all probably have in mind, where someone wants to make a point of order and they can't, because they can't unmute themselves, or because they raise their hand but they're like eighth in the queue, so all the other people are going before they even get to raise their point of order.
Mhm.
Or in some cases, they will type it in the chat, point of order, and it is not recognized by the person facilitating the meeting. Those are real challenges that in many cases can exclude people from being able to participate. And we definitely are thinking about that all the time. That's not something that I'm not thinking about. That's something that I'm thinking about all the time and trying to resolve, and often talking to chairs in those places where it's just not necessary to have those kinds of tight restrictions, asking them to loosen up a little bit so that people can fairly participate in the meeting.
Yeah,
But it is on the radar, Christina.
yeah, yeah. And I think I've heard of some, like especially the point of order and appeal, having an alternate way to make them, like in the chat room with a guaranteed monitor watching for that. That's one possible way. But yeah, there are various a good set again a good set of electronic rules. And we don't have time to flesh one out today, but look around. They're out there, and that might be what you're looking for. And Tori Sumlin?
Thank you. When we're talking about making motions, um, on most agendas that come from um, the Department of City Planning for us, it has two things listed: approval of the previous meeting minutes and approval of the agenda.
Hmm.
Is there a easier way or a quicker way to go ahead and get past those two so you can kind of get right into the meeting versus, asking someone to make a motion?
Oh yeah, unanimous consent. Especially with the minutes. The preferred way to do minutes is not even to ask for a motion at all. It's assumed that you're going to adopt one. The way that the minutes should go is the chair says, Secretary, read the minutes, or the minutes have been distributed, or whatever you say. Is there any correction? Hearing none, the minutes are approved, and then you move on. Unless someone has a correction, then you handle that. But usually there are none, and then nobody even has to say a word. You don't need a motion. There's one assumed. The chair just declares the minutes approved.
Now,
On
the
the
caveat to that, let me
uh,
jump in because
mhm.
I fully agree. I'm a huge fan of unanimous consent. Huge fan. Love it. I wish more NPUs used it. That said, that only works for NPUs that are disciplined enough to, or that have the manpower and are disciplined to send the minutes out in advance of the meeting. Many meetings that I attend, the members are seeing the minutes for the first time during the meeting when it's pulled up on the screen, and then they're taking, in many cases, well, maybe not many, in some cases, they're taking 10 to 15 minutes to read minutes, which are actually more of a transcript of all the things that occurred in this 2 or 3 hour meeting. I don't want to get into, I'm serious. I experienced that myself. I don't
Yeah.
want to get into what belongs in minutes because we cover that in our in our officers orientation, and it's also included in the handouts that y'all got in the officers orientation. Um, but I do agree and strongly recommend a faster process for approving minutes, such as unanimous consent, but that requires that you distribute your minutes at least a week in advance so people have a reasonable opportunity
Yeah.
to review them.
Good
And
point.
the second point to that one, same thing with the agenda. If the
The
agenda is
agenda.
printed, it's been sent out, and you just simply ask the question, are there any corrections to the email
It,
agenda
it,
or
it's not exactly the same.
okay.
But but because with minutes you assume you're going to adopt something. It's not a there you don't really have to, but when you go into it, there is an assumption you're going to adopt these minutes, either corrected or uncorrected. But the agenda, you don't necessarily have to have an agenda. So you have the draft agenda that the secretary and treasurer come to the meeting with. They put it in front of you to vote on. And that unanimous consent, I do highly recommend that they could say the agenda is now before you. Is there any objection? And someone you can either vote on it um I mean sorry object on it or vote make a motion to amend it. But then it's voted on up or down, and you do have the right to vote no and just not have an agenda. So that's a little bit different, but I still do recommend unanimous consent.
Thank you.
Hmm. Okay. Now, in the processing of a motion, the chair asks for debate, and all comments are directed to the chair. The maker of the motion can speak first if they want to. Usually, the chair looks toward the maker, expecting them to, because usually when you make a motion, you want to talk about it, you want to tell people why you made it. So the chair looks, so after they state the question, they look over at the maker because he has the right to speak first, and so they let him speak first. Then the chair tries to alternate between views for and against the motion, but that's not always possible, but they're supposed to try. The debate should be germane to the business at hand. You can't just go on about anything. And chairs, there's different styles. I really like a stricter style on germaneness. Some people just they get up and start telling their whole life story. And even if they're going to build lead up to a place where they make it relevant, if I have to sit there wondering when are you going to make this relevant, you're not being germane. And some chairs might wait it out, might say, well, he's probably going to make it relevant in a minute. I'm like, no, we're in a hurry. So if you don't tell me your whole history with this issue, don't make it personal. Don't talk about yourself. Talk about the issue. Now, after its debate runs out, and it either just runs out naturally, the chair might say, is there any further debate? Hearing none, now we'll vote. Or there might be a motion to close debate that's adopted by a two-thirds vote, and then either way, it's time to vote. The chair will explain the method of voting, voice vote, secret ballot, or whatever you're doing on Zoom, and then the members vote. The chair then announces the results. He states which side has the votes and whether the pending motion is adopted or lost. And note those words here, adopted and lost. I don't say passed, and I don't say failed. Roberts prefers adopted or lost. The chair explains the effect of the vote. And that's an important one. A lot of times I don't hear them doing that, but let's say you've passed, listen to me. Let's say you've adopted a motion to make a donation. The chair might say the motion is adopted and the treasurer will write the check. He's stating physically what is now going to happen, who is going to do something as a result of this vote. there's not always an action that's going to be taken as a result of the vote. For example, if you amend the bylaws, nobody's going to go out and do anything as a result of that. The chair would simply say, the motion is adopted and the bylaws are amended. There you go. At least you know what has happened. And that's an important final step after you adopt a motion. Say what we're all going to go out and do now, if anything. Member recognized by the chair. Member states his motion. I move that, or I move to. Motion receives a second. The chair states the motion. It is moved and seconded that blah, 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 blah. Members debate the motion. Is there discussion? The chair takes a vote. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. And then he announces the result with the ayes have it with a vote of 60 ayes and 40 noes or whatever. The motion is adopted. And then the chair states the results. The treasurer will issue the payment. And now on to decorum. This is very important. This is something that chairs need to know. That's a bigger part of presiding than you might think. When you're presiding, a chair the entire time is having to keep replaying the rules of decorum in his head. And every time someone's speaking, he's running through those rules of decorum, making sure they're all being complied with. That's aside from just keeping up with where are we in the consideration of this motion. He also has to remember decorum all the time, even if he's not talking about it. And Mr. Coley.
Can you go to the previous slide, please?
Sure.
I had a tendency to say, if you are not in favor of this motion, please signify by a raise of hands. And it's almost like a reverse unanimous vote. Is that not a proper way to do it?
No, that's not the way Roberts lays it out, but I especially the not in favor language is jumping out at me. You want to say opposed. Not in favor could mean you have no opinion. And that would be someone who'd abstain more likely. So I would, I mean,
Okay,
even
but if I would say if you are opposed to this vote or to this motion, please signify by a raise of hands.
Okay. I
And
don't.
if there are no hands that go up, then what I've said is, seeing as there are none, motion carries.
It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the way Roberts prescribes it, but if you do it that way and no one's objecting, it will stand. Put it that way. Is that good enough?
Thank you.
Okay. No fundamental rights have been violated. I'll tell you that. So that's why it will stand. Now decorum. Rule
But
1
to
decorum.
everyone else, I'll just say, don't try this at home.
Yeah, please.
Please.
Okay, Tori Sumlin.
So we
PUM rocks.
we don't need to ask, are there any abstentions? If, for instance, some people may just not want to vote, or do we need to make that a practice? Because that happened to me. I think it was last week during our meeting. I didn't ask that question, and one of the members texted me, and so I had to go back and do that because he wanted to abstain, and just not vote on it at all, and he wanted it to be recorded.
Abstentions should not be mentioned. People should be allowed, unless it's a roll call vote or certain unusual situations. But generally speaking, like to say, it's a voice vote. All in favor say aye, aye. All opposed say no, no. And then you're done. People who were silent abstained, but you take no notice of them. They don't matter. That's assuming that we're talking about the normal vote as prescribed in Robert's Rules of Order, where it's a majority of those present and voting, or 2/3 of those present and voting. If you got a weird thing in your bylaws that says a majority of those present or 2/3 of those present, then you're in a different situation. And you might need to, well, you would still probably wouldn't count abstentions, but they do now matter. And they're now, anybody who abstains is now effectively voting no. So you've got to, it wouldn't be a matter of comparing the ayes and the noes. It would be a matter of counting the ayes and then comparing those to how many are present. Don't write your bylaws that way, please. But Karen Bell, question.
Hi, this question might be more so for Leah. I just want to confirm whether or not chairs are required to abstain from voting.
I actually would love for y'all to hear Todd's
Okay.
response to that, and then I'll tag in.
The chair under Roberts is allowed to vote, but strongly advised not to, kind of similar to the parliamentarian. But they are one of the reasons they're advised not to, and a good reason for them to take this advice is, aside from the impartiality, is they have the right to cast the deciding vote anyway. They let's say that main motion is being considered and the vote is 50-50. If they want to, they can say the ayes are 50, the noes are 50, the chair votes aye, making it ayes 51, and the motion is adopted. They have that right. So they can hold out until the very end and see if their vote's going to make a difference, and then wait until it really matters and only use it then. So for that reason, if I were presiding, I'd just wait and I would only vote if it mattered. Because I get the advantage of seeing after everybody else votes, I get to decide last if I want to vote or not. So, but no, you're not. It's not an ironclad requirement in Roberts, but just a strong advice in Roberts, not that the chair not vote. Is that good?
And I was just going to add the same thing that I said regarding parliamentary procedure. If the chair is wanting to vote for whatever reason, it could be some moral reason, perhaps, or I don't know. But if a chair wants to vote, they should, as much as possible, do so discreetly, not in
Yeah.
secret, but not in a way that influences the rest of the room. So, the motion has been made and seconded, all in favor, and the chair is the first one raising their hand. That is influencing the body,
Yeah.
or it could be viewed as influencing the body. So it's just not wise to do it that
Yeah.
way. But
And
again, the city wants as close of a representative recommendation as we can get. That 50-50 chair breaking the tie makes me cringe. It actually it does something to me, because that is not like that works if you're deciding to have the annual membership event in June or in September. Okay, 50-50, I break the tie. That doesn't it doesn't have as much of an impact as deciding on your recommendation on a zoning matter. A 50-50 vote shows
yeah.
the city just how divided the community is. So that's definitely a
Okay.
challenge, but
Okay.
carry on.
Okay. Well, I want to cover that a little bit more on the deciding vote, because it's deciding vote versus tie vote. They're different. But Connie Mabry, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But Connie Mabry, go ahead. Or Connie Mabry.
I read somewhere that as a parliamentarian, if I'm in close proximity, for example, at the table with the chair, I am not allowed to vote. I'm the parliamentarian for our
I don't want to
NPU.
say not allowed. I'm going to say discouraged.
Gotcha.
Okay.
But if I'm sitting out in the audience, I
That
can
doesn't no
exercise.
no that doesn't have anything to do
No?
with it. No, that doesn't have anything to do with it. Where you're
Okay.
sitting, that doesn't matter. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, okay. Now the chair can vote not to break a tie per se, but to cast the deciding vote. Let's say it started off, the chair is presiding away and the vote is taken, and he goes, the ayes are 50 and the noes are 49. Chair votes no, making it 50-50, and the motion is lost. The chair can do, under Robert's Rules of Order, the chair can do that. If a motion gets a tie vote, then it didn't get a majority in favor, so it's lost. And the chair can cast his deciding vote to create a tie vote. He can break a tie or create a tie, either one. So that's what I'm talking about. And also with a 2/3 vote, he can cast an aye vote to give the aye side the 2/3 it needs. And the no side, same thing. So that's what it's not a tie vote, it's a deciding vote that the chair has. Anyway, members must confine remarks to the merits of the pending question. Yes, don't go off topic. Don't tell your whole life story. Talk about the motion. And if it's an amendment, you can't even quite often you can't even get into the merits of the motion itself. You have to stick to the merits of the amendment. Like let's say you're deciding you have a main motion to have an event and then an amendment to hold it on a different date. Well, the debate on that amendment must stick to the date. You can't just go talking about the event again. You got to stick to which date. And the chair's got to enforce that. Don't attack other members' motives. And I must clarify, even if you're talking facts that you can prove, if it goes to another member's motive, that's not the time to bring it up. You might launch disciplinary proceedings or something, but not while considering a motion. You don't talk about people's motives, just the advisability of adopting the motion or not. Members must address all remarks through the chair. You don't talk to each other. Members must avoid the use of other members' names. It's not always possible, but try. Try to say something like the member who just last spoke, or the secretary, or some other way of describing them other than their name. And definitely don't talk to them during debate. Members must not, see, I've said this one before, you must not speak adversely on a prior action not pending. Don't gripe about things that are settled already, unless you bring it back up in a new motion. Members must refrain from disturbing the assembly. That's kind of a catch-all that, we can't think of every little thing you might do that might disturb the assembly, but anything the chair sees you doing that's bothering people, the chair can ask you to stop. If you think he's being too picky, you can ask to have it put to a vote. The chair must be impartial and refrain from debating. Oh, and I was also going to add a little bit ago, and I'm glad this came. I forgot to say, if a chair really wants to participate in a debate, they can. They should just step down from the chair and call their vice president up, and the vice president can preside over until they want to come back and for the remainder of that motion. That way, the chair can temporarily cease being the chair and become, start acting like a member at least until that one motion is over. Then they regain the chair. And an exception to the chair being impartial is small board rules. If you're dealing with a board of directors, executive board, that's less than about a dozen members, then that's a small board. And the chair actually often is the most active member. All the impartiality rule is gone. The chair does not have to be impartial. It should still be fair, but they can take sides in a debate and they can vote. Okay, agenda. How are we on time? It's 7:15.
7:15.
We're stopping at what, 8 or 7:30?
7:45.
Yeah, okay. Agenda. Before the agenda is the call to order. And I want to mention that because everybody knows there's a call of order, and most people I see are putting it on the agenda, which is not the worst thing in the world, but technically it doesn't go on the agenda. It's not considered business. The call to order is best done on time. You don't want to make a habit of starting late because then people get used to that and they show up late, and then you even have to start later than that. One rap of the gavel is the symbol that you're starting the meeting. And you say the meeting will come to order. You establish a quorum. It's also not on the agenda, but it's a rule and you have to do it. You look around and make sure that you've got a quorum, enough people to legitimately hold the meeting. You can establish a quorum through a roll call, through an attendance sign-in, or through physical observation, just looking around and seeing, yeah, we have more than 10 members here, or however many. Adopting the agenda. We talked a little bit about that before. The president and secretary draw up the draft agenda if desired. I say if desired because not everybody has to have an agenda. I think most of you all do, though, in your NPUs, though.
Our office does the draft agendas and
okay. So Roberts
yeah.
is superseded on that
point. Yes.
Okay. You should include the adoption of the agenda early in the draft agenda because you're going to want to adopt it for it to become binding. At that point in the draft agenda, the assembly deliberates the draft agenda and may adopt it as its agenda. It will have a yes or no vote, and it's up to the assembly to decide if it wants that to be its agenda. And it can be amended, by the way. You can amend a draft agenda, a pending agenda, by a majority vote. Once adopted, it becomes binding, and any deviation requires a 2/3 vote. So you got to stick to it unless you vote your way out of it by a 2/3 vote. If you don't adopt the agenda, then there's already a default one in Robert's Rules of Order that kicks in, and it's the standard order of business, and it goes in this order. Minutes first. Reports. Reports of the officers, board, and standing committees come next. And then the special committee reports after that. Special orders. Special orders are anything the bylaws requires you to consider at a specific meeting, like elections, or anything that a previous meeting voted to make a special order. Then comes unfinished business, which is anything that was left over from your last meeting that you didn't get to finish, like something you postponed or something that was pending when you adjourned. Then you get to general orders. And those are most of the specific items that you know about. The chair and the secretary hopefully listed each one individually under general orders. Then new business, things that they didn't know about, but that you, the members, want to introduce during the new business section. And then after that, after all the new business is accomplished and there's either a vote to adjourn or nobody wants to make any more motions, then comes the adjournment. Keeping minutes. I want to advise that it's not an agenda item. Keeping minutes is just a job of the secretary, but I want to advise, be sure you don't transcribe your meeting. You simply record the outcomes of your motions. It's to record what is done, not what is said. And it's a way that you keep it's important that you keep minutes, because after a meeting is over, not everybody's going to be able to remember everything that's done. And that is your chance to go back over and say, what all did we agree on? What all do we have to do now as a result of this meeting? And yes, Connie Mabry. Connie Mabry?
Thank you. Yes, sir. Would you repeat what you just said? I missed it.
Yeah, okay, the minutes.
Yes.
The minutes
What's
should include
mhm,
minutes are a record of what is done, not what is said. You don't
mhm.
summarize debate. You simply list the outcomes of the motions. And read Robert's Rules of Order on that. There's some nuance there. There are a few other little things you're supposed to include, but generally that is what it's for, is to record the outcomes of the motion so you know what to do. What did you agree on? What did you agree you would do? So that is what it's for, to record what is done, not what is said. Yes, Mr. Coley.
I just wanted to say before
Uh-huh.
Mr. Coley asks his question, just for clarity so that people aren't wondering why that's different from what I tell them. I always tell NPUs and neighborhood groups that they should be recording what is done, not what is said, for sure, and any commitments that are made. Oftentimes, the first part of most NPU meetings includes updates and announcements from city departments. And sometimes on occasion, there is a commitment from a city representative to do a thing that should absolutely be captured in the minutes as well. So the action that you take, meaning whatever voting outcomes you have, and any commitments that are made during that meeting should be included in your minutes.
Yeah. Oh, also, by the way, anything the assembly votes to include, I mean, for any reason or no reason,
Yes.
the majority can say we want thus and so in the minutes just because we do. Um, and then approval of the minutes. I think I've covered that adequately. We'll move on. No motion. Yep. Reports. Officers, the board, and the
Before you
committee.
go,
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Coley. Yeah, my bad.
yeah, yeah. In today's society of electronics and AI and whatnot, I know that there are some that use the recording from Zoom as their minutes. Is that legal in Robert's rules?
No, not recommended. A record, in fact, not Zoom, but recordings are mentioned in Roberts and said, no, that is not a good substitute for minutes.
It really isn't. I second that.
Okay.
The city doesn't like it either. It's not good.
Yeah.
And does that hold true for, I know that holds true based on what we're talking about here for NPUs, but the neighborhood organizations report up into the NPU. Does that hold true for them as well?
Yes. Yep. A recording is not minutes. So
I will say this though, because I'm sensitive to the fact that all of you, every last one of you in this room, except for my staff, are all volunteers. And so I am always sensitive to that. And I never want to make your jobs, your role more complicated than it has to be, or more cumbersome or burdensome than it needs to be. What I would suggest, I absolutely am not in favor of using recordings as minutes. I've been saying that for about 5 or 6 years now. It is not a good idea. What you could do, though, that still kind of lessens the burden a little bit is use the AI tool in Zoom to generate the meeting notes and then just delete all the extraneous stuff, delete whatever is not relevant. You definitely want to confirm what's in there because AI makes mistakes. So you want to confirm it. You want to include the vote counts in there. All of that is very important, but the recording is just not a good or an equal substitute for minutes from neighborhoods or from NPUs.
Well, reports. Officers, board committees may give reports, and they can be for information. And if they're for information, you don't vote on them. You just say, okay, thanks. But if they can include motions, and if they do, then you vote on them, debate them, and vote on them right then. You don't have to wait for the new business section. You do that as part of the committee report section. Then there's special orders, items required by the bylaws, and anything the assembly votes to make a special order by a 2/3 vote. And your unfinished business, things carry over from the last meeting, or things that the assembly votes to make a general order, and that includes by adopting the agenda, they make things a general order. And new business, any new item of business can be introduced when no other question is pending. New business is usually introduced as a main motion. And then there's other agenda headings that are not part of the standard order of business that you might want to include in your agenda, like adoption of the agenda. If you're going to have your own agenda, then it's good to adopt it, or otherwise it doesn't mean anything. Announcements. Everybody does them. Good of the order. That one, some groups swear by it and some groups won't touch it. I've seen that the types of groups that use that are the fraternal groups, the lodge type organizations. They have a section at the end of the meeting where they everybody gets to stand up and make comments about the organization itself and what they think might be good for it. And they don't have to make a motion. With some organizations, that would be a recipe for disaster. So it just depends on whether you think you'd want to or not. Program. If you're going to have a speaker or maybe a student group come do a skit, that'd be your program, and you put that in your agenda. And then adjournment. Just like call to order, you don't usually consider adjournment business and wouldn't put it in your agenda. But if you want to specify a specific clock time at which to adjourn, then that does go in the agenda. Now for bylaws. That's everybody's favorite. I did a bunch of bylaws work recently. Bylaws, they are adopted to govern the organization. They are, among other things, a contract between the organization and its members. And they should be no more restrictive nor more detailed than necessary. That's easier said than done right there, I know. Concise and precise language is essential. Yep, don't go on and on. Don't use 5 words that all mean the same thing because you want to make sure to capture what you're trying to say, like a lawyer would. Just say it once. And precise. Get the right word. Hit the nail on the head. And after your bylaws, your next going down the hierarchy, the next level of rules down the list is your special rules of order. Those relate to your meeting procedures. For example, a rule to limit debate to 2 minutes per speech is a special rule of order. After that, going down another level, you have your standing rules, and they relate to the administration of the society, like rules on its hiring practices or its bank account. They can also regulate meetings when RO&R is silent, like name tag requirements. Your bylaws. Here's a typical order of articles that would go in your bylaws. Your name goes in Article 1. Then your object in Article 2. Article 3, members. Article 4, officers. Article 5, meetings. Article 6, board of directors. Article 7, committees. Article 7, parliamentary authority. And Article 9, amendments. In your Article 1, you should include your full, exact, and properly punctuated name of the organization. That way you know your name. You all agreed what your name is. And sometimes I see in Article 1, organizations will also put their affiliation. Like they'll say their name and then they'll say a chapter of whatever larger organization. I don't think that's part of your name. If I was going to put that in the bylaws, I'd put it in another article. But I don't know why they do that. Anyway, your object is Article 2, and that's your reason for being there. Why we're here, what we're for, what's our purpose, what are we doing here? And you might want to put, after you state your purpose, you might want to add another little line that says, and for other purposes as determined by the organization, so that you're not tying your own hands. You don't want people later making a point of order, that's not in our purpose. When I write Article 2, I never intend for it to limit the organization. Article 3, the members. How to become a member. How a member can be terminated, if they can be. And then resignation of members. Under Robert's Rules of Order, anybody resigning from an officership or a membership, the resignation has to be accepted. The assembly would have to vote to accept the resignation. So you might want to put it in your bylaws to allow a member to resign without requiring a vote. Disciplinary action, that goes under members. And then Article 4 is officers. You always have a president and secretary. And then you list them in their rank. President, and then vice presidents or president-elect. You probably shouldn't have both. But then you would go down the list from there, secretary, treasurer, and then on down into whatever other officers you have. Yep, sergeant at arms. And then your qualifications of officers. Years of service, previous offices held, previous service as a committee chair, geographical location, all of these can be officer requirements. I personally tend to not want very strict or stringent officer requirements. I want to let the assembly use its judgment. And I have seen times when organizations are just horrified that the person they want to elect is missing one of the requirements. Some of the requirements I have written into bylaws that I've written. This requirement can be waived by a 2/3 vote. You might want to include that on some of your requirements, maybe years of service, maybe, shoot any of these. I would probably not waive requiring them to be a member of the NPU, but certain like if you want them to require having done certain things in the past, you might end up with nobody eligible. So be careful and maybe write yourself a way out if you think it's wise. The duties, yeah, they need to be laid out. A lot of times it's not clear who does what and people fight. So lay out your duties clearly, especially those beyond the scope of the parliamentary authority. And know this, for president anyway, and secretary, the duties are meeting related. If you're president, you probably have executive functions. You're running the organization, and that's not going to be in the bylaws. I'm sorry, that's not going to be in Robert's Rules of Order. You need to put it in the bylaws, what your executive power is, because under Robert's Rules of Order, you only have power to preside over the meetings. And don't leave anything out, or somebody might say you don't have a right to do that. Now, when you're electing, you have the method of nomination. You can take nominations from the floor, and sometimes people have nominating committees either way. Your method of voting can be secret ballot, online ballot or not. If there's only one candidate, one nominee, you might consider having acclamation, meaning they're just automatically elected so that you don't have to go to all the trouble of holding a vote when only one person's running. There are other methods. You have paddles, hands, online voting, all of which are valid if if the assembly agrees. And there's write-in votes. You should generally allow them, generally try to have a way that they're possible. They are considered a good thing, sometimes necessary. Your term of office, put it in your bylaws when your term begins, and state how long your term lasts. In your cases, it should be a year. And then you will probably are well advised to include or until their successors are elected, or and until their successors are elected. With either of those phrases, if you can't have your election on time, then your officers continue to serve until you are able to hold your election and elect the new ones. You don't want somebody going out of office. Yes, Ms. LaRue?
Yeah, that's not the case for us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Um,
Wasn't
at all.
okay.
Elections that are not held by November 30th
That's
will
right.
be conducted by by the Department of City Planning in the month of December.
That's right. So, hmm, okay.
And to be further, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, to further clarify,
Mhm.
that's for NPUs, not neighborhood associations, because I know I
Yeah.
have a mixed crowd here.
Oh,
That that rule does not apply to neighborhood
okay.
associations. It
Yeah. Yeah.
applies to NPUs.
Okay. Fair enough. Um, how to fill vacancies, election by board or membership, appointment, and be clear on that. It's not always clear, and you want it to be clear. On your meetings article, specify what is the day of your regular meeting and your annual meeting requirements, and who gets to call special meetings and how. Be sure you specify how many days notice it takes to call a meeting, who notifies whom, and that all the members have to be notified. You can't have a special meeting unless every single member has been notified. And also, you can't have a special meeting if you didn't put it in the bylaws. Roberts doesn't allow them unless you put them in your own bylaws. You need a well thought out quorum. Be realistic and get a representative number to conduct business. It should be stated as a number or as a percentage of the membership. I like a flat out raw number because that way you don't have to find the secretary and ask how many members do we have right now. You can just look around and count, and it's fair and equal for everybody because everybody has the ability to look around and count. Yep. I just said that a minute ago. How you call notice for a called meeting, how it is to be issued, what electronic shown on the website, you mail it to them, what do you do? Specify the board's composition if when you have your board of directors article, number of members, qualification for membership, manner of election, be specific so that everybody knows how it's done and what to do. State the power of the board. A lot of people don't think to do this. How much power does the board have? Full power and authority. It has full power and authority if you empower it to act between meetings of the membership. You can do everything the membership can do between meetings of the membership, if that's the way you put it. Some boards just have limited and or emergency power, reserving all other power to the membership. But whatever we want to do, come out and say it. Make it clear so that when you read the bylaws, we know. And the rules by which the board is to conduct its business, the meeting time and required quorum. The board's going to have its quorum, and it's different from the member meeting. Standing committees. You have your name, composition, members, and duties of each committee. They should all be in the bylaws. And consider a provision for establishing additional standing committees. Special committees, state how they are created. Also, it would be a good idea, state how committees are dissolved if you want a committee to be able to be dissolved. And how members are appointed and removed. Those are important considerations. Now, designate a parliamentary authority in areas that will cover areas your bylaws does not cover. Your bylaws are, of course, a superior set of rules, and they supersede anything in Robert's Rules of Order, and the code supersedes your bylaws. The code is kind of like your charter. It's kind of like the document that brought you into existence. Now, of your parliamentary authority, here are the main two. That's what the American Institute of Parliamentarian Standard Code looks like. But that's Roberts. That's the one most of you use. When you amend the bylaws, describe the amendment process, the advance notice required, and the vote threshold, and say what information is required in the notice. Also, your annual bylaw vote, I don't consider that to be an ordinary amendment. That's readoption. I think the code makes that pretty clear. The amendment of bylaws set forth the procedure for proposed bylaw changes. By primary and secondary amendments to the bylaw amendments are in order. Sorry, they are in order, and they may be adopted by majority vote. So get that, even though you're amending the bylaws by a 2/3 vote, when you're perfecting that proposed bylaw amendment, tweaking it, it's a majority vote to make changes to it when it's not yet adopted. Specify the meeting or meetings at which amendments may be considered. Specify the vote and the amount required for adoption. NPU readopts bylaws annually by majority vote. That's what I was saying. That's not really like ordinary bylaw amendments. That's a different kind of a vote. Bylaw amendments go into effect immediately upon their adoption unless provided otherwise in the bylaws, the bylaw amendment motion, or by proviso. But your annual bylaw readoption doesn't take effect immediately. It takes effect the following year. Yes, Leah.
You said it.
I
I'm
said
just making sure that's clear
it.
that their bylaws take effect January
Yes,
1st.
yes. Okay. And again, I cannot recommend this book enough. If you read this book, you will be unstoppable in a meeting. So, and it can't be wrong because it's written, look at those names. It's written by the same people that wrote Robert's Rules of Order. There are other books out there that function as clip notes for Robert's Rules of Order, like The Complete Idiot's Guide to Parliamentary Procedure or Robert's Rules of Order, haha, Robert's Rules of Order for Dummies. Those have mistakes. I much prefer this one. And question and answers. You see that? Yep, that is. Thank you all. Great group. I think we had a lot of good discussions. Taryn Bell.
Yes, so my question is, if we are a part of a meeting, a neighborhood meeting, and this is for you and Leah, a neighborhood meeting, a NPU meeting, we're a part of that meeting, but we are not a member. Can we still call, so like Leah, if I'm presenting at another NPU, for example, can I still call for these for the proper steps to be adhered to? And can I still
No,
make motions? I cannot.
no, if you're not a member of that body, you don't have any.
Even if they're not following Robert's rules and it's affecting, um, for example, me
Mm-mm,
present, I can't, there's nothing. So
mm-mm.
what is the recourse in that?
I mean, you can call attention to it. You can say, it's hard to really respond to that without a clear example, but if you are presenting and something out of order is hindering your presentation, you can note that it is hindering your presentation. You can't call a point of order in someone else's meeting because you're not a member of that body or that assembly, as Robert's Rules calls it. You can't call a
So
make a motion.
I could only make motions within NPUJ because I'm a part of NPUJ.
You So you can make motions at any NPU that you are a member of. I know you're a
Okay.
member of J, and you can
Okay.
make motions there, but if you are also a member of uh,
Got you.
P, you can make a motion at P too. If you are a member of P and meet whatever requirements they have
Right.
for membership.
I would
Thank
add
you very much.
you can advise members who are there if you do it quietly and not disruptively. You can suggest that they do something.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
But if you're presenting, like a presenter to a group who's not a member, if they have a problem, they would simply address it to the chair. They would say, Mr. Chair, I need order, please.
Yeah, and you notice, Taryn, in our NPU, there is a presenter that often attempts to bring order, I guess, to the NPU or tell the NPU what they can and can't do. And you'll notice I will usually call a point of order at that time and remind that person that they are not a member of this body and they don't have the right to speak at this point. We're deliberating on a motion and you're done. Your presentation is over. Thank you very much. But now it's members only. This is a members only conversation. The same would apply to you if you're presenting and they don't know what they're doing
Okay.
for whatever
Thank you.
reason. Mhm.
Mr. Getachie Smith. You're muted.
I'm mute. Is there a relationship between the Robert family and any Atlanta institutions?
Morehouse. I believe that General Roberts' father was once president of Morehouse.
Yes, he was the first president.
Okay, thank you.
And he is buried at Oakland Cemetery here in
Yeah,
Atlanta.
yeah. Georgia is very connected to
Answer, and you wanted to test Todd to see if he knew
it.
the answer? Is that what that was? That's
That's why
boo. Boo. But that was great information though.
Yes,
So that
especially
was,
since
we are one of the largest state associations of the NAP, and that I think that has a lot to do with it.
thank you.
Mr. Scapidi?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up real quick. Somebody mentioned AI earlier, and I'm sure Robert's Rules of Order prefers meetings to be in person. Is that something that, these Zoom meetings, is that a concern moving, into the next decade and
Oh yeah,
AI? And
very much.
what would you recommend? What would you recommend?
Well, Zoom meetings. The Roberts wants the meeting to be where all members can see and hear each other. And you don't have that in Zoom, and that's why you need separate rules to even make it legal. And we all kind of cringe at the fact that we still can't see and hear each other like the way we should. I have proposed something called the democracy button for Zoom meetings, which if we can't get things like the chair, if we can't take away his power to mute us and things like that, at least give the members a button that if 2/3 of them push it, it causes the software to conduct an automatic election to replace the chair. So that would be our electronic safeguard against a tyrannical chair who's just shoving his will down everyone's throat, is the members have a button that no one can override that allows them the power to replace that chair. But I haven't gotten anywhere with that yet, but that's my idea. But yes, there is a lot of concern about the fact that electronic meeting rooms don't really give us what we need for a true deliberative assembly. You're right.
What, Miss LaRue, how many NPUs would you say are on Zoom and how many are in person?
25 are on Zoom. There are presently 4 or 5 that meet hybrid on via Zoom and in person. And there is one NPU that meets in person however many times and on Zoom however many times. And then one NPU is meeting in person for the first time next month, for the first time since 2020.
Just seems like it might be more difficult to get all the departments and all the, city officials, police, fire, and all that to attend in person.
Actually, on the contrary, I would say, and there are a lot of folks here that have been around for a while, they can disagree or agree, but I would say we had less of a problem with participation from city departments when we were meeting in person prior to the pandemic. Obviously, I prefer online because it's more convenient for me to be there, but without a doubt, that decision is entirely up to the NPU, not the chairperson, but entirely up to the NPU to decide.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, should I keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, Connie Mabry.
Did I understand you to say that via Zoom, your organization is recommending that there be a app or attachment to the Zoom that would allow the participants to contact or somehow move on a certain subject. And if the chair is not, tell me what you were saying there,
Yeah.
because
Not my
and
organ.
humor me, Todd, because I'm a super elder.
Okay.
Help me out.
Not my organization, just me.
Okay.
I favor democratizing Zoom meetings somewhat by adding a feature that would allow the membership to choose a different chair by transferring those rights to a different person automatically. But I know that that's a tall order that Zoom would have to go along with it and it wouldn't be cheap for them. But at least me arguing for it illustrates the points I'm talking about, which is the chair has too much power in a Zoom meeting. Does that answer it? Okay. Tanya Williams.
Hi. I have two questions or two comments. So with regard to your democracy button, I guess where is that standing or what is the current status of that? And I think I'll let you answer that, but I think that's somewhat extreme because that's assuming that all meetings are running exactly like Robert's Rules of Order state. And you have to remember, like within the communities, you have a lot of dynamics going on. So I would think that that's not I wouldn't think that's a good
Yeah.
idea. Um, and then second, secondly, with regard to the Zoom meetings as opposed to in person, um, I think that Zoom is a very good tool because what it allows everyone to do, because the other thing is, if you think back pre-COVID or even right after COVID, traffic has increased like tenfold. So what used to take you 20 minutes to get to, it's now an hour. And it would just, I think it would limit participation if it
Oh,
was to go back in person because,
yeah.
I mean, things have changed fundamentally as far as what it takes to mobilize and get around the city and get to and from point A and B. So I don't think that, I don't see Zoom as a detriment. I think it's something that actually allows people flexibility because
Oh,
people
yeah.
can pick up the kids, they can, you can be at home, you could say, hey, I can do this from my office and not have to leave an hour and 30 minutes ahead of time to
Yeah.
get from point A to point B. So I think people need to really, see this as this is an adjustment into the future because I mean, think back 2 years ago how the time frame that it took you to go from Atlantic Station to downtown and then think about that today.
Yeah,
So
I'm not anti-Zoom or anti-electronic meeting. I just want more safeguards for the members. The power is too much skewed to whoever's running the meeting. And I want technology to evolve in a way that allows the members to control things more than just the one person. That's my point. But no, I'm with you about this having opened up participation. It absolutely has.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say, the data has been so interesting on that, and I won't belabor the point. It's 7:51. Daniel's got his hand up, and then we'll wrap up. But when we first went to, and forgive me, I don't have numbers in front of me, so I'm kind of generalizing here. But when we first went to Zoom meetings because of the COVID pandemic, we saw an immediate and drastic increase in participation. It was like 55% increase in participation. It was major. But there were so many NPUs, especially over time after that first year, that saw a significant decrease in participation. Many NPUs have not reached the level of participation that they had in 2019 and the beginning of 2020. Even today, they still have not recovered all of those lost members. So there really is no right answer for meeting in person or meeting online. There is no right answer. It is, and we've been consistent with that position. It's whatever works best for that particular NPU. It is a matter for the NPU to decide, not the city and not the chairperson. It is 100% the NPU's decision to make. We do love those electronic attendance records, though. My God, what a difference that makes. We really love that. But yeah, anyway, Daniel.
Yes, I did want to ask either Todd or Leah if I excused myself at one point to go to the kitchen, and I don't know if this was covered, the topic of failed motions. I know that we've got all the parliamentarians in the room, so I just wanted to make sure that that was covered.
Okay. Yeah. What about them though?
So there has been, I've received concerns in the past from NPUs or NPU voting reports rather, where I see that a motion was introduced, seconded, and it was voted on, and the motion failed. And the conclusion was that because the motion failed, that means that the opposite of what that motion was is what passed.
Yeah, no, yeah. I remember we talked about that before. That is where, like, let's say we move to recommend that so and so happen, and the noes have it, and the motion is lost. The assembly has remained silent. They have not spoken. They have decided they didn't want to say anything about whatever the matter was. They're not recommending anything. They're not recommending against it. They're simply not choosing not to recommend for it. If they want to recommend against it, they need another motion that says they're recommending against it, and they need to adopt that one with a yes vote. So no, they're not recommending the opposite by a failed motion. A failed motion has no meaning. Or lost motion, lost, I mean. Okay. Where are we, Ms. LaRue?
Mr. Sumlin.
Thank you again. Leah, this is a question for you. Is there anything or does anything say, or is there a requirement that the city says when the city, like city employees or city departments are attending the Zoom meetings, that they should have the cameras activated?
No.
Okay.
Can we make that a rule?
It's a rule on my team. You'll never ever be in a Zoom or a Teams meeting with my team and not see their faces. We started that rule March of 2020, day one. Kendra wasn't here yet, but Daniel was here, Tony was here. They know day one, I'm like cameras on, period, for every meeting. I keep in mind, y'all, I'm also a resident of the city of Atlanta. I'm also an NPU member and a neighborhood association member. So I experience the city both as an employee and as an attendee to an NPU meeting. As such, I always prefer when the camera is on. I think it should be always on. And I think there should be other guidelines around what should be visible on the camera. But yeah, definitely think the camera should be on. But that's just my opinion. I do not have any authority to enact that as a rule. I don't think, I mean, I don't know. I'm not opposed to asking for it. I'm not opposed to asking for it. We, as part of planning Atlanta together, we plan to, one of the things that we'll do is have sessions with the engagement folks from each department and talk about how they engage with NPUs and neighborhoods. That I'm happy to mention that there. I will just say that that is so low on the list of what we really need to get from these departments in terms of their engagement with NPUs. But I don't mind bringing it up. It's, I don't mind raising that issue. While I'm on the subject, though, please, I don't know if I even have anybody from those particular NPUs here, but there are some NPUs that have very heavy agendas. I'm going to take the moment to toss this out there. We have NPUs that have anywhere between 10, 20, sometimes 25 applications on their agendas every single month. And somehow they almost always manage to start and end their meetings within 2 hours. Some do far less than 2 hours, looking at you, M, but many of them have, and I mean literally 10 to 20, sometimes more applications per month, and they are able to accomplish that. And we can talk about how, but they are able to accomplish that in a reasonable time. And then my NPUs that have 0 to 2 applications, and I do mean literally zero, some of them have zero, some may have 1 or 2. Those tend to be the meetings that are 2.5, 3, sometimes 4 hours long. And, you know, I'm not a member of your NPU. It can be as long as you want it to be. That's your NPU, that's your business. However, APD has asked multiple times, and I have conveyed that to NPUs as well, but APD has asked multiple times to please allow them to give their update at the beginning of the meeting so they could return to the business of keeping Atlanta safe. They do not need to be sitting on a Zoom meeting for an hour waiting for you to call on them, or even half an hour. They should be called very early in the agenda. We communicate that. We add it to the agenda at the top with a little note, please call them first. And we still have some NPUs, typically new chairs. The established chairs, the ones that have been around for a while, they don't do that. But we tend to have some newer chairs that will do a lot of other things at the beginning and then call on the city departments. I don't care whether you have departments, city departments at the end, at the middle, wherever, but please let public safety, fire, APD go first on your agenda. Please, 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 please. Well, not literally first, of course, call your meeting to order and adopt the agenda, etc. But after that, it should be APD, please. All right, I don't see no more hands. Thank you, Todd.
Thank y'all. I enjoy it. See y'all next year.
Mr. Sumlin may have another question. You have like 30 seconds, I think.
Oh no, you just said you just seen it out of the hand, so I just wanted to raise my hand.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Just a very quick question for me. It's I'm assuming that everything that we've talked about does apply to consent agendas as well, or is that a whole nother topic?
Well, a consent agenda is a bunch of motions considered together that are all approved by unanimous consent. So that's it. So a lot of rules are waived by unanimous consent.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
All right, I'm trying to catch up on a murder at a recording studio. My God. All right, anything in the chat that we missed? Nope. I think I see everything has been addressed. And thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to our team who put this class together. So many thanks to you, Kendra, and Tony, and Morgan, and Daniel. Thank you, Todd. And listen, all those names that I named were paid to be here, but y'all were not paid to be here. So thank you again for caring enough about your neighborhood and about this city to spend a couple of hours with us learning how you can participate more effectively in your meeting. And hopefully any chairs we have in the room also learned a little bit about how to conduct more effective and efficient meetings as well. Aquandra, real quickly.
I didn't see my question answered about when we're making a motion, then are we supposed to say, Chair, I move to, rather than I motion?
Oh, absolutely. I move, not I motion.
Thank you. It just irks me when I hear people say I motion.
I would say try to move past that real fast because that's not going to change anytime soon. 25 NPUs, all 25 of them say motion, like literally all of them. And yeah, it is what it is. As long as we still got people coming, joining the class, but as long as the intention is clear, meaning it is clear that two people supported having the NPU vote on this thing. Like one person made the motion, another person seconded the motion. That means two people support having this discussion and having a formal recommendation or formal vote being taken. As long as that part is clear, we're not sticklers over the wording. You can be though. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with caring about that. All right. I appreciate y'all, Miss Mitchell. I keep trying to let y'all go. And to be clear, we do take very seriously starting and ending on time. So if you don't have questions and you're finished, our class is adjourned. We're done. We're finished. But if there are more people that have questions, I don't mind. I would like to leave City Hall soon, but I could take a couple more questions. Miss Mitchell or Todd and I can take a couple more questions.
So, Ms. LaRue, my hand was raised too, but I don't know